Welcome to One Insight. My name is Litvin. I grew up in London and I now live in LA. And this is a podcast for extraordinary top performers. You see, I've coached some of the most successful and talented people on the planet. I see what most people cannot see, and I dare to say what most people wouldn't dare to say. And what I know about success is that on the other side of it, it can actually be lonely. You can feel like more of an imposter the more successful you become. And when you're the most interesting person in the room, you're actually in the wrong room. I coach around insight. Life looks one way, something happens, the world looks different, and your entire world changes. It can happen in an instant. And this podcast is called One Insight because a single insight can change everything.
In a moment, you're going to hear or maybe watch me work with Kelly. She's one of the brightest, most talented people I know. She worked at a high level in Hollywood and a high level in Silicon Valley. Steve Jobs was her mentor, and he became her mentor when at 16 years old, she approached him and said, "Hey, Steve, would you be my mentor?" She's a real model for me in fearlessness, in opening doors. And yet, we all get in our own way somehow, some way. And what I do today with Kelly is work with her on what she wanted was me to help her articulate into the world who she is and what she does. And whilst I do that, there's an insight in how she shows up that if she continues creating the way she does, she will be burnt out in the future and she can't let that happen again. And because I see that, I draw out distinctions from her in how she can create an amazing future with ease and grace and not a sense of burnout. It's really fun to play with someone as talented and as unique thinking as Kelly. Enjoy. Well, hi, Kelly. It's nice to reconnect. We have connected so many times on and off over the years. You are an early member of 4PC, my community of high-level leaders. You're someone who I admire for what you create in the world. And we said, let's jump on a call today to do something that we can do for others, we can't do for ourselves. You are a trusted advisor to lots of very high-level leaders. They share all sorts of things that they'd never share with another living soul. But sometimes we need a place where we can do that too. And it's fun to reconnect. Hey.
Thank you, Rich. Wonderful on my part too, to be with you.
Yeah. So let's see how we play. What would make this an amazing conversation? You know, one of my favorite questions.
You know, just you holding up a mirror, candidly, and sharing about my unique gifts, and that helps me express them in the world. Because, you know, as smart as we are, we sometimes don't have languaging for the value we add uniquely to our clients.
That's great.
And that's, candidly, always been a struggle for me, is to manage the wording properly. That's
great. And you said something in that sentence which is really powerful. For our clients, actually, a lot of that wisdom is in our clients. And one thing we forget to do is ask them. So one thing I'd highly recommend is actually, it takes a little bit of courage and you have to put humility to one side, but going back one client at a time. This is not a mass email, but hey, John, it's been a couple of years since we worked together. I'm taking my business to the next level. And I realized I've never asked you what you appreciate about working with me the most. Would you mind telling me what's one single thing that you admire about what I do the most? Or when you think of me, what's one word, 1 to 3 words that come to mind? Or when I leave a room, what's missing? So these are recorded so you can go back later and write that down. But those are really powerful questions to reach out to people one person at a time. So I can do some of that work drawing this out of you, but the magic's really in your clients because they know you and they've experienced you. And what we're looking for is the patterns, Kelly. As you know, one individual is their thing, but when you see words that are repeated and ideas that are repeated, now there's something in there to play with.
Indeed. I love it. And in fact, I did a variation of that exercise recently because I'm integrating 2 websites that I've had for years back into one, just under kellyrichards.com. And my own business coach suggested that as well. She said, let's have you go back and talk to some clients. And what came back was fascinating.
Well, what'd you get? Tell me.
One was, in fact, you're like the magic mirror in, a Disney film. or one said, you're like Glinda, the Good Witch in The Wizard of Oz. And it's funny how they brought up all these pop culture references and basically said, you're someone who's never been afraid to tell me the truth like no one ever has before. It was just fascinating.
I love that. That's what we're looking for, is patterns and metaphors and ideas that have commonalities. This idea of the magic mirror. Well, often our biggest gift is where we struggle the most. Of course, if you're a great mirror for others, well, where's your mirror? Who's reflecting back to you? Who's telling you truths that you need to hear?
Yeah.
So that's great.
And that's what the business coach said. She said, "You're being told you're the mirror." She laughed about that.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's powerful to realize. So let's dive into that a little bit, and let me slow down and draw out a little bit of your story. Did you go to university?
I did.
What did you study?
Business, because that's what I was told I should do.
I was going to ask that very question.
By my family.
I've got a degree in biology and economics, and I did a joint degree because my dad said, you love biology, but get some business in there too. There we go.
So I did do that, but my passion from the age of 8 was to be a record producer. I saw the genius in George Martin with the Beatles. And I said, oh my, that is what I have to do. And I was so serious about it. I studied recording engineering in high school. Literally, after school, I went to a recording academy.
So,
but when I got
tell me
Hollywood,
back a fraction. I'm curious because most kids who heard the Beatles wanted to be the Beatles, and
correct.
You didn't. Why do you have that distinction?
I wanted to be the man I wanted to be the individual, like George was doing, who was drawing the brilliance out of them and coming up with new ideas, new sounds, new technologies that they otherwise would never have known about. I wanted to be that person.
How did you get that insight at 8 years old?
Yeah.
How did you get that insight?
I was a bright, precocious child. I was surrounded by college students because my mom was a college professor. And we were surrounded by the Beatles music all the time and stuff on TV and pop culture. And so I got steeped in all of that. And I was smart, and I saw, and it just kind of hit me like a lightning bolt. A lot of people, to your point, when the Beatles played Ed Sullivan, that's when a lot of the groups came out of that, classic rock groups that we know now and love.
Yeah.
They went, oh my God, I've got to put a guitar in my hands. For me, I said, I've got to sit behind a board and draw the brilliance out of these creative geniuses.
I love that. So fast forward me a little bit. You leave university. Where'd you go next?
Well, I went to Hollywood, and I thought, okay, now's my time. I'm done with school. I've paid my dues. Now I've got to start my career, and I want to go into the music industry and be a producer. I couldn't get arrested as a woman in that field, even though I'd studied and I was knowledgeable and all of that. So I got lucky, and through connections, I found my superpower was starting to emerge as a connector. And through connections that I'd made, I got introduced to the head of what's called A&R at EMI, one of the big record labels. And that person's job in A&R is to manage the talent on the roster of a record label and to sign new artists and to hire producers and find them songs and all of that. Mm-hmm. So I came in as a young A&R executive under the man who would ultimately run the and took that detour in instead of going through as a producer. So let me slow this down, because these are things that I want to get the insights underneath the story. One is, what I just heard is that you took a sideways route in. There's a shortcut I just heard that you took. It was a detour because I couldn't get arrested going as a record producer, as a woman. What do you mean I couldn't get arrested? What does that mean? What it means is nobody would hire me because I was a woman in that field. It was a lockout for women. Right. It's interesting, right? So many people fear limitation. And actually, sometimes limitation creates innovation. You couldn't get in the way that everyone else did, so you had to do it an unusual way, and it actually probably catapulted you beyond other people because you had that ability to see that. I imagine part of your gift as a trusted advisor is doing that for others, helping them see shortcuts to fast forward through time. More so, yes, and more so possibilities that they otherwise wouldn't see for themselves. Yeah.
Yeah.
By the way, I had put myself through college working at major music magazines. There were this collection of 3 music magazines in my town of Silicon Valley, Cupertino, where I was growing up. Guitar player, keyboard, and bass magazines. And I put myself through college working there during the day and going to school at night. So the music thing was just never going to be gone. I also had become a talent producer of award shows from when I was in college. So I was meeting artists and getting in the mix that way. I was doing everything I knew to immerse myself in the industry, even when I was still here in the Bay Area.
So I'm looking for insights in what you were doing. There's your world, what was happening, but beneath that is how you were seeing the world in order for that to happen.
Right.
What I've just heard is there's a distinction around immersion. You just fully immerse yourself in something. And
passion, yeah.
Tell me more about passion.
Well, it's that I had that passion for being in the mix of the music industry, right in the heart of the creativity, and I was going to do it however I could do it. So if one channel was blocked, I would go to 3 others.
So what you're calling passion is what I'm hearing is nothing will stop me.
That's right.
Great.
And there's a little bit of a rewind before we fast forward to the next piece, Rich, and that is I did grow up. I was born in Santa Monica. I grew up in Cupertino in Silicon Valley. So I always had a foot in both worlds of the content world of Hollywood and the technology of Silicon Valley. And that became critical to my trajectory as well. But during those young years when I was still in high school, Steve Jobs also grew up near me. And of course, Apple's headquarters is in my hometown, like the Wonka factory. Mm-hmm. So I was tasked as a teenager, a member of Future Business Leaders of America in high school, to go find a mentor in business. And I chose Steve. And he frequented the same restaurants my mom and I would eat at, which were kind of hippie-esque, cornflake, granola type places. And I approached him at one point and asked if he would be my mentor. I told him why I was interested in, I was only 16. Mm-hmm. And that relationship was pivotal for me in so many ways, all the way through when he passed, or close to when he passed, when I stopped being in touch with him.
Yeah.
So that became a pivotal relationship. And what it did was it reinforced that I could approach anyone. And I was fearless about doing that, especially if I had something of value to offer them, or I was in earnest about them as an individual, what would make them tick. So that set the stage for a pattern of doing that and becoming ultimately a connector by being fearless about opening doors and approaching people with something of value. Mm-hmm. And of course, I do that with my clients now. When they they don't know how to get in front of somebody, I say, well, what do you think would be valuable to the other person? And then we figure out a way to get them in front of that person.
Nice. I love this. Some of this I know, some of this is new to me. And a lot of it, you just know. There's you know who you are. I can feel this inside of you. You spent time working as a consultant, as a coach, as a trusted advisor, hybrid of all 3 at different times, right?
Yeah.
Where next? If in 3 years' time, you call me and say, Rich, oh my gosh, my life is amazing. My clients are amazing. Business is amazing. What are the 1 to 3 things that you'd be telling me that most excite you, the most fascinating, have most fun about?
Well, I really am at choice, working with the people that inspire me the most, the companies and individuals that have characteristics that resonate the most with me, passion, innovation, reinvention, legacy. And I'm working with them, and to borrow some of your language, as a thought partner and a co-creator to help them manifest the vision they've been harvesting sometimes for decades. And now finally getting their genius out into the world and creating their legacy in a way that really fulfills and inspires them. So it's almost like playing with people, but at an echelon of the people I choose to get involved with.
Yeah. Well, by definition, right? Super smart from a young age, like you were. You want to work with super smart people too. There's people who get and they get you. And that
you just hit the nail on the head, Rich. These days, and in past times, it was people like Steve Jobs and Prince and Todd Rundgren and others that got my genius, my brilliance, and therefore we wound up working together. Nowadays, I'm canvassing, my subconscious is always looking for brilliant genius types. Those are the people I resonate with the most. I want to play with them because they're out there on the forefront making things happen in the world well before the rest of the world can usually understand what they're up to.
Yeah, that's a good catch, because genius is only recognized as genius after a certain moment. Before that moment, it's often looked as crazy, as stupid, it doesn't make sense, it's laughed at, it's mocked. And then there's a shift in mindset in the world, in the community, and now someone's venerated as a genius. It's
everything we put into that Think Different campaign that Steve had his heart and soul into at Apple. Mm-hmm. Everything about that campaign is everything you just said. That's mm-hmm. That's what the point we were trying to make.
Yeah. So what's missing now? Because I know you've worked with people like this, but what's missing between now and those 3 years? What's missing?
The only thing missing is me. In the last few years, I've sort of taken a step back and been a little bit insular, as you've noticed directly. I've not been as involved with your community. I've been sort of pausing to reinvent what does come next. And now, and I took a couple years to do that, frankly. Now I'm ready to start to come back out again into the world and do that more visibly and reach out to the people I really want to do that with and have conversations for possibilities with them. Because there's nothing stopping me from reaching anybody I want to engage with.
Yeah.
For me, that's the easy part, where a lot of people get stuck right there. They go, I don't even know how I would reach that person. What would I say? That to me is the easy part.
I've got it. Since we're talking and you know me, you like to work with smart, talented people.
Yep.
You have these, what I hear are called genius conversations, because you see possibilities in them that they can't see for themselves. How would you guide me? What have you got for me? Bring the full-on truth teller, magic mirror. What am I missing? What do I need to hear? What you got for me?
For you? Yes, for you. And very specifically, I know how impactful the first book you did, Prosperous Coach, was with Steve Chandler. I know how fulfilling it was for you personally. I know what its difference it made to all the people that read it. And you've been talking about birthing another book for years.
5.
You tell me. I would have said 4. You said 5. You would know. What has been holding you back? I would want to work with you to get out of your own that book, which I'm confident has incredible information for its audience. It's doing a disservice for it not being out there. So I would be wanting to work with you to help you get out of your own way and get the book out there, for heaven's sakes.
Nice. I like it. Appreciate the truth telling. What would you say if you knew that whatever you said wouldn't hurt my feelings, but there's something I need to hear behind that you haven't yet said to me?
I think I would say there is something holding you back. There is something that's been holding you back from doing just that. I know how much you've wanted it. I would probe. I would ask you, what is it that's stopping you from, you're a master of manifestation. You think of something, you put it into the world. What has been holding this second book back for so long? What within you?
So these are great questions. And whilst I can answer them, let me pull out my magic mirror and reflect this back in you. Not because I'm avoiding the questions. I'm happy to answer the questions. But our gift as a coach and as a leader is we see things in other people, but often it's because we see them reflected back in ourselves. What's holding you back? Because I look at you, Kelly, and I know you've had books published. You had a podcast that ran for years. You've become known in your field, and yet you've gone quiet. And there's a place where you ought to be known. And what's the missing there?
I think I hit some kind of a midlife crisis where I just needed to pull back within myself. I was burning out. I was overextending myself with thought leadership, including 300 episodes of that podcast that was done well before podcasts really took off. Right. And the fact is, I loved doing it. I loved having fireside chats with people just like we're doing right now and hitting the record button. That was the podcast. And so I am gearing up to start it up again. I haven't published a book in 9 years. I kind of let the thought leadership stuff go because I just got burned out.
Yeah.
It was compromising my ability to serve my clients the way I really wanted to. and I was overstretched myself personally. So I had to just stop everything and reflect on what was most important and what I really wanted to spend my time doing.
If I'm right, what I'm hearing behind that is it's really important you protect your energy.
You got that right. Nail on the head.
Because if we work together now to create the next 3 years of your life, and you called me in 3 years and said, Rich, it's amazing. I have inspiring clients and companies I work with. I'm known as a thought partner. I partner with people who are genius, super smart, highly talented genius types. We have genius conversations, but I'm burnt out again. It wouldn't be worth even starting on that journey.
It would not. And every part of me that got affected by being burned out the first time has been playing a role in stopping me from putting myself out there again.
Yeah.
All the subconscious parts of me, because they don't want me to burn out again.
Yeah. Yeah.
And 3 years from now, I really don't want to be having that conversation with you. I want to be doing all this on my own terms, in my own way, with ease and grace, and with plenty of time for myself.
Okay, what we need to do from here then is to create those next 3 years, but from this place, this underlying place of ease and grace.
Mm-hmm.
I joke sometimes, my clients have a tool, WWRD. What would Rich do?
Yes.
It means they face a problem or a challenge, they have a question, they ask themselves, what would Rich do? And then they go and do that. And often by the time they've called me, the thing that the voice in their head who sounded like me advised them was far better than I would have even thought to say or to advise them on. What it does, it gets them out of their own head and their own thinking. And what you need is a tool that for now I'll call, what would ease and grace do?
Well, one of the things I will do is take a WWRD from your own playbook. And I don't do this. And I've been wanting to do it forever. And that is to take a month off in the summer as a reset and completely unplug. And another is to take perhaps at least the second half of December, maybe the first half of January. So I have 2 months in the year where I'm just not on. And that would help prevent the burnout and allow my creativity to come back more too.
That's beautiful. So already ease and grace have already started to say, ease and grace would say at least 2 months a year, you're not working, Kelly.
They've been waiting for permission to speak for a long time, Rich.
Yeah, well, great. So we're freeing them up right now. So,
yeah.
I remember saying, I think it was 2007 or 8 to my coach at the time, I really admire you. You take a month off in the summer. And I said, I'd love to do that maybe in a couple of years. He said, why don't you start now? And I was like, well, how can I start now? I'm relatively new to coaching. I can't tell my clients that. Call finished, and coaching often happens between the sessions. And yes. I thought, well, what if I went to my clients and I called them up one at a time and said, hey, I'm planning to take the summer off. Now, I'm happy to be on vacation and still coach you. But it just dawned on me, you might also like to have a summer off from coaching. And if you would, I'll add a month on at the end of your coaching. Mm-hmm. So you'll get the benefit of a month off, and we'll end up working together for a month longer than we planned. Every single one of them went, that sounds amazing. And within 4 days, I went from thinking it was 2 years into the future, I could have a summer off, to it was done.
Yeah.
And I haven't stopped since. I've just come back from a month in Palm Springs.
Exactly.
So that's number one.
And you have always been a lighthouse in the 10 years plus that I've known you for what was possible for me.
Yeah.
I didn't know it was possible to earn whatever it was when I met you 10 years ago. Let's say $300,000 a year in coaching.
Yeah.
You know, and there you were doing it back then.
Yeah.
So that said to me, wait a minute, I could shift my thinking someday. I won't have to do the consulting anymore. I could just do the high-end coaching I want to do with the people I want to work with and make a very good living at it.
So what I just heard, one of the things that you're very good at doing is helping others see possibilities when they can't. You actually need someone or something to help you see those possibilities, because we're human. We can't do for ourselves often what our gift is for others.
Right.
Okay. One of my friends a couple of years ago, maybe 4 now, wanted to go take a year off. He was a designer, had his own studio, then he became a coach, and he was burnt out and wanted to have a sabbatical, a year away. And he said, I'm going to get in training for this. I'm going to take a week off every month. And I thought, wow, that sounds amazing. And I started to tell my clients, I only coach you for 3 weeks out of every month. And here's why.
Yes.
Because unlike every other coach, I want there to be a gap of time every month where there's at least 2 weeks where you're not being coached by me. So you're out there in the world making stuff happen. And every one of my clients said, wow, that's amazing. No other coach is like this. And so I created for myself a week off every month. And my clients thought this was an amazing gift to them. I really believe in the power of creating a selfish business. Of course, I have no doubt you're all about creating value. That doesn't change. But create a business on your own terms.
Yes.
So if we want to have you feel energized into the future, Kelly has to come first. You have to know what you can and cannot say yes to. So here's a third tool I'll give you, Kelly. It's called Let's Sleep on It. Whenever I have a possibility, an opportunity to work with someone, to do something, to create a project, I say, especially if I'm very excited about it, I say, let's sleep on it. If I wake up tomorrow morning and I'm still excited and enthused and you are too, we'll talk and it will happen. But if either one of us wake up tomorrow with a sense that this is not right, we'll say that now.
Or that the timing isn't right, maybe later. Say that now.
That's another tool I call no for now.
Right.
And no for now gives me permission, because it's hard for me to say no to people and opportunities. But no for now is not the same as no forever.
That's right.
It frees me up. Okay, no for now.
That's brilliant.
What I'm hearing is that when you come from what would ease and grace do, you don't walk your way into a future where you become burnt out. You're there protecting yourself before you begin. So this is actually a conversation about boundaries, Kelly. Being really, because whilst I heard you, and I'll reflect back some of the things you said around who you are in the world, you more than most people I know who you are, know your gifts, know your stories. Mm-hmm. So whilst I'll reflect some of that back, underneath that, what is far more important is that you create a world that has very clear, strong boundaries. There's a book on my shelf that I've never read. I keep it purely for the title. The title is No is a Complete Sentence. Mm-hmm.
Yep.
I committed to doing something a few months ago, and I was looking at my calendar. It comes up in a few weeks, and I realized right now, Monique and I have to homeschool our kids on top of running our businesses and creating a relationship and everything else we're doing. And what I said yes to a few months ago has now become really heavy on me. And so I'm going back to those people and I'm saying, hey, I'm really sorry. I made a commitment to you and my life has changed. And whilst I feel a sense of guilt, and I'll see how I can create value in another way, I can't commit to giving you that time right now because my kids need it. Mm-hmm. And they're my number one priority. A friend of mine told me years ago, if I have a decision to make and there are two options, I can either feel a sense of guilt or a sense of obligation. Go with guilt every time.
In the name of self-preservation.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
For you, in the name of ease and grace.
That's right. And Mark Allen would say, notable publisher of New World Library, author in his own right, he would say, in its own perfect way. Do it on your own, success on your own terms is really the phrase.
Nice.
And of course, that's what I want to model and support my clients in doing.
Kelly, I'm sure you've done this tool with me in the past, but have you done an energy audit in a while? Or if you're not familiar with it, tell me. I'm going to explain it anyway for people who are listening.
I am familiar with the concept, and I will authentically cop and be vulnerable in saying that I'm often bone tired. Yeah. I use it deliberately. Even though I sleep through the night, during these COVID times, I know I'm not alone. A lot of us are more exhausted than normal.
So let's do this, because I don't want to talk about it. The tool is called an energy audit. It's very simple. You take a piece of paper, you draw a line down the center. There we go. I love it. You literally just in real time said no. Someone was calling on your attention, right?
That's right.
We're practicing it right now. You draw a line down a piece of paper. The left column says things that energize me, and the right column says things that drain me.
Yes.
And you make a list of the people, the places, the thoughts, and the habits that energize you, the people, places, the thoughts, and the habits that drain you. Mm-hmm. You make your big list, and then one at a time, over time, you work on the list that drains you. And so you start to remove those things that drain you or add to the things that energize you. It's one of the most simple and profound tools I ever use with a client. If I was only ever allowed to use one single tool with a client, and that was it, this would be the one. Because if I could, one at a time, one day, 1 week at a time, remove from your life the little things that drain you of energy, guess what? You'd have more energy. And you are smart and talented and ambitious and driven. And if you have more energy, I know amazing things are coming your way. So yes. The only thing I want to leave you with today is that tool beyond everything else. Make a list of the things that energize you and drain you. And once a week, go back and revisit that list. And see, is there one thing I can remove from the drainers or add to the energizers in the days and weeks ahead? Repeat that again and again. If you did that one single exercise once a week for a year, your world would transform.
No doubt. I love it. Thank you.
The only thing you'll need is to have that be sacrosanct time on your calendar. There will need to be a time, Saturday morning, Sunday afternoon, Friday at the end of the week. You put that time and nothing shifts. It should say on your calendar, this is a great one, you call it a meeting with my board of directors. So if anybody says, Kelly, I need to speak to you at 3 o'clock on Friday, you look at the calendar, hey, I'd love to, but I meet with my board of directors on Friday at 3 p.m. And nobody in the world needs to know that your board of directors is nothing but you, ease and grace, and your notebook.
That's brilliant. I just love it.
All right, let me finish. I'm going to wrap by reflecting back to you what I hear as the high-level aspects of who you are and what you do, Kelly. What I get about you is that from a young age, you were bright, you were precocious, you saw things that most people couldn't see. And you actually weren't afraid to say things that other people were afraid to say. You watched the Beatles coming out and being successful, and unlike others who wanted to be the Beatles, you said, I want to be the person behind the Beatles. You think differently. No surprise that if we fast forward a little bit, when you thought, I need a mentor, you sought out Steve Jobs. You said, what I hear about you is that you aim high when you're doing anything. You sought out Steve Jobs because you knew, again, even from a young age, you can approach anybody. If you come from this place that I've got something of value for you, or I know something about you, this isn't something trying to take something from me. Aiming high and being fearless and opening doors is what makes you a super connector. It's who you've always been. You're a super connector in two ways. One, in how you're not afraid to connect with people, but two, from a young age, you saw there was this overlap between content and technology, Hollywood and Silicon Valley, and you operated in that thin sliver in between. You have a superpower of connecting ideas and concepts from different worlds. You were told at a young age, you can't do this. You went to Hollywood and people said, no, women can't do this. Sometimes they said it verbally, but I imagine more often than not, it was simply through their actions. Oh, yes, please come in. But the action said, no way, you're not getting through. So you learned to take shortcuts. You were able to see possibilities that nobody else could see. So you have a superpower as a connector. You aim high, you take shortcuts, you see possibilities. You immerse yourself in any world you want to go into. Absolutely immerse yourself, learning, studying, growing. And you have this mindset, nothing will stop me. Mm-hmm. You also have a really fascinating filter. You love to work with brilliant people, super smart, highly talented, genius types. And what you create are genius conversations, the kind of conversations that super smart people can't have with most people. What most people don't know about you is that way of living, which is inspiring for most people, is so exhausting that on a day-to-day basis, you can feel bone tired. You're extraordinarily good at helping others to filter out opportunities that might drain them, to say no to things that would take away their energy. But of course, we're so often gifted at teaching others what we struggle with ourselves. And your journey, which I really encourage you to be authentic and open around sharing with others. Don't hide this. They need to hear that because people put you on a pedestal. They need to hear the real Kelly too. You're walking into the creation of the next stage of your life from this place of a question. What would ease and grace do? Because you know how to be super successful and be burnt out, and you're not doing that again. But to be highly successful with ease and grace, now that is a journey you're on. And if anyone is listening, watching, or reading these words as you share them, then your invitation is to come on that journey too. You will help them fly, step more into their genius than ever before with a sense of ease and grace so that it looks effortless and it feels effortless.
Brilliantly summarized. Thank you, Rich.
Thanks, as always, for sharing you, Kelly. I look forward to seeing what happens. There'll be a strong place of being really firm in boundaries. I would consider for yourself, who's the person in the WWRD question? Who do you admire the most for setting really strong, clear boundaries? So it becomes WW and that person's name. What would they do? Who do I admire the most for the boundaries they set? Whenever there's an opportunity, you ask, what would they do first? And then you decide what to do. Thanks for playing, Kelly.
Thank you for having me on. It's been wonderful, Rich.
For most of human history, it wasn't called coaching, it was called leadership. And it's what I love to do, to coach people, to lead people, and to mess with people's thinking. If you'd like more of this, or if you'd like to learn more about our community of extraordinary top performers, go to richlitvin.com/oneinsight.